The Apache women's offer will give your baby milk, but marry one of us. Wild West story, the sun was low in the sky, painting the dusty canyon in shades of orange and pink. Red Mesa was quiet, except for the faint hum of solar collectors and the occasional clink of metal on metal. At the edge of the small settlement, a woman walked down the main street. Her boots kicked up tiny clouds of red dust with every step. She wore a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed her face, and her clothes were simple but practical. A faded jumpsuit with pockets full of tools. Her name was Alara. She had been traveling for months, moving from one settlement to another, repairing broken machines and helping people. She was good at her work, but she never stayed long. She liked her freedom too much to settle anywhere, and so she walked through Red Mesa's streets with a careful smile, keeping her eyes on the buildings but not on the people. At the center of the settlement, a small supply station sat next to a row of tethered hover drones. The sign above it read Jax's Supply Station. Inside, Jax, the owner, was busy arranging metal parts and solar batteries. He was a cowboy in every sense, though his horse was now a small hover rig. His hat was dusty, and his boots had been patched more times than he could remember. But he had a kind face, and his eyes carried the weariness of a man who had raised a child alone. Jax glanced out the window and saw Laura walking toward the station. He didn't know her, but something about her steady step and calm presence caught his attention. Before he could think too much about it, a small voice piped up behind him. "Daddy, who's that?" Jax turned to see his son Toby standing at the edge of the counter. Toby was small for his age, but bright-eyed and curious. His sandy hair stuck out in all directions, and his smile was both shy and bold at the same time. "I don't know yet," Jax said, kneeling to meet his son's gaze. "But maybe we'll find out." Alara entered the station with a soft jingle of metal. She nodded politely to Jax. "Hello. I'm looking for work, something to do while I pass through." Jax wiped his hands on a rag. "You fix machines?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "I do," she replied simply. Her hands were already smudged with grease. "Anything from solar drones to old engines. I can help." Toby peeked from behind the counter, his eyes wide. He loved machines almost as much as he loved adventure. When he saw Alara's toolkit carefully packed and well used, he knew she could do amazing things. "Can I watch?" Toby asked, stepping forward. Jax frowned slightly. "It's fine if she lets you, Toby. But don't touch anything dangerous, okay?" Alara crouched down to meet the boy's gaze. "Sure," she said with a small smile. "You can watch me, but only if you promise to stay safe." Toby's grin stretched from ear to ear. "I promise." The first task Alara noticed was a broken solar drone that had been sitting on a shelf for weeks. Its wires were frayed, and one of the rotor blades had a bent tip. Everyone in the settlement had tried to fix it, but no one had succeeded. Alara set her bag down and examined the drone. She murmured, turning it over in her hands. "This is old tech, but not beyond repair." Toby leaned closer. "How do you know?" "I can tell," Alara said, smiling. "Some machines have personalities. This one just needs a gentle touch." She worked carefully, tightening screws, reconnecting wires, and replacing the rotor blade. Toby watched in fascination as she moved with steady confidence. Sparks flew only once, and even then she laughed softly, making it seem like the sparks were part of the magic. Finally, the drone buzzed to life. Its rotors spun smoothly, and it hovered above the counter. Toby clapped his hands in excitement. "It's flying!" he shouted. Alara laughed and set the drone down. "See? Told you it just needed a gentle touch." Jax nodded, impressed. "That's good work. Really good." Alara packed up her tools after finishing. She didn't want to stay too long. She had learned long ago that the longer she stayed somewhere, the harder it was to leave. But something about this small settlement, about the quiet canyon and the hovering drones, made her hesitate. As she stepped outside, Toby ran after her, his small legs carrying him faster than expected. He stopped right in front of her, panting slightly. "Wait," he said. His voice was small but serious. Will you be my mama?" Alara froze. She hadn't expected that. She looked down at the boy, his wide eyes full of hope and innocence. Her chest tightened in a way that surprised her. She had always been alone. She had always been careful. She had never let anyone get close. I don't know," she whispered. Toby tilted his head. I like you. I need a mama." Alara swallowed hard. She knelt down so she was eye level with him. "Toby, that's a big question. Are you sure?" "I'm sure," he said, nodding quickly. "Please?" Jack stepped outside then, wiping his hands on his rag. He gave Alara a small, meaningful look. "Toby's a special kid," he said quietly. "He's been asking for a mama for a long time, in his own way." Alara looked from Jax to Toby. She could feel the warmth of the canyon sun, the quiet hum of the hover drones, and the unexpected pull in her heart. Something inside her wanted to say yes, but she didn't. "Not yet. I need some time," she said gently. "I can't decide right now. I'm not used to staying." Toby's face fell, but he didn't give up. "Can you at least stay for dinner?" Alara smiled. "Okay, dinner." Jax motioned for them to come inside. The smell of roasted root vegetables and warm bread filled the air. It was simple, but comforting. Toby chattered the entire time, asking Alara questions about the stars, the hover drones, and the strange tools in her bag. She answered patiently, feeling herself relax in a way she hadn't in a long time. By the time the sun had dipped behind the canyon walls, Alara realized something surprising. She hadn't just fixed a machine today. She had helped a small boy feel hope, and she had connected with a man who was trying to keep a family together. And for the first time in a long while, she wondered if maybe she could belong somewhere. That night, as she lay on a small cot in the guest room Jax had set up for her, she thought about Toby's question. "Will you be my mama?" The words repeated in her mind. She didn't know the answer yet, but for the first time, the idea didn't feel impossible. Outside, Red Mesa was quiet. The wind shifted the dust across the canyon floor. The stars began to shine in the clear sky, distant planets twinkling like tiny lanterns. Somewhere far away, a hover drone buzzed past the canyon edge. And inside the small supply station, a little boy dreamed of the mama he had just met. And maybe, just maybe, a new adventure for all three of them had already begun. The next morning, the canyon glowed a soft, golden color as the twin suns slowly climbed into the sky. The Red Mesa settlement stirred to life. Tiny hover drones zipped between the tethered solar panels, their metal wings catching the light. The smell of toasted root bread and hot tea floated through the air. Alara stretched her arms and stepped outside the small guest room. She could hear Toby's laughter before she even saw him. The little boy was chasing a hovering drone around the courtyard, his boots kicking up red dust. Every now and then the drone spun away and he ran after it, laughing, determined not to let it escape. "Good morning," Alara called. Toby stopped mid-chase and waved. "Good morning," he shouted back. "Come see." "I can fly it now all by myself." Alara smiled and approached. "Let's see." She knelt down to adjust a small rotor that was slightly crooked. "Not bad," she said. "But remember, the drone listens best when you're calm and steady. Excited energy makes it jittery." Toby nodded seriously, then tried again. This time, the drone hovered steadily as he guided it with careful hand movements. Alara clapped softly. "You're a natural," she said. Toby's eyes sparkled with pride. From the doorway of the supply station, Jax watched them. He had been repairing a solar panel array, but he stopped to observe. He could see the bond forming between the woman and his son. Something in his chest tightened, a mix of hope and nervousness. He hadn't expected Alara to stay, even for a day. But now she was here, laughing and talking with Toby, teaching him patience and care. "Breakfast!" Jax called, stepping out with a tray of steaming root bread, tea, and fresh fruit. "Come eat before the sun gets too high." Alara and Toby raced inside, and soon they were sitting around the small wooden table. Toby talked nonstop about drones and solar grids, asking Alara endless questions. "Do you think stars have doors?" Toby asked, spooning bread into his mouth.
Alara blinked, surprised.
"Doors? Yes. Like maybe you can go from one star to another through a secret door in space," Toby said earnestly. Alara laughed softly. "Well, I haven't seen any doors like that, but space is big, and you never know. Maybe one day we'll find out." Toby's eyes widened, and he nodded. "I hope we do." Jax joined in the conversation. "Space is full of mysteries," he said, "but sometimes the most important thing isn't what's out there. It's who's right here with you." He glanced at Alara, then looked away quickly, unsure how much to reveal. After breakfast, Alara wandered toward the workshop. The settlement had several old engines and solar machines that needed repair. She couldn't resist the hum of unfinished work. Toby followed her, bouncing along, pointing out anything he thought was broken. "You see that rotor?" Toby asked, tapping a small metal box. "It wiggles too much." Alara examined it and nodded. "Good eye." That could cause the whole system to lose power if we don't fix it. She handed Toby a small wrench. Here, hold this. I'll guide your hands. Toby's little hands shook slightly with excitement. Alara gently guided him as he tightened the screws. When it clicked into place, he let out a triumphant yell. I did it! He shouted. Yes, you did, Alara said, smiling. See what you can do when you pay attention and work carefully? For the rest of the morning, they worked together, fixing small engines, aligning solar collectors, and even adjusting the hover drones. Each task was a chance for learning, but also for laughter. Toby's energy was infectious, and even Jax found himself laughing at some of the boys' misadventures. By midday, the suns were high in the sky. Alara wiped sweat from her brow and looked around. The settlement was quiet except for the gentle hum of machinery. Toby ran ahead to check a repaired solar collector. He leaned close, whispering to the machine like it was a secret friend. Alara watched him, her heart softening. She had always been alone. Traveling from settlement to settlement had kept her safe, but lonely. And yet here, with Toby and Jax, she felt a strange warmth she hadn't felt in years. Toby, she said softly, do you ever think about the future? He looked up at her, curious. Future? Yes, Alara said. What you want to do when you grow up. Or where you want to go. Toby paused. He looked out at the canyon, where the light danced across the rocks. I want to fly, he said finally.
Not just the drones.
I want to fly up to the stars, see planets, meet new friends, maybe even find a mama for real. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at Jax, who was quietly checking the solar array from the other side of the courtyard. Their eyes met briefly, and she could see the gratitude and hope there. Later in the afternoon, a small challenge arose. The wind shifted unexpectedly, making the tethered solar collectors wobble dangerously. Alara moved quickly, adjusting the supports and tightening loose connections. Toby tried to help, but only made things worse at first. Alara guided his hands patiently, showing him how to stay steady even when the wind blew. You're learning fast, she said as they finished. Toby beamed proudly. It's because of you, he said simply. That evening, as the suns began to set and the canyon turned deep red and purple, Jax called them inside. The day had been long, but full of small victories. They ate together again, talking about stars, drones, and faraway planets. After dinner, Alara stepped outside for a moment to breathe in the cool canyon air. Toby followed her, yawning, but determined to stay awake. Do you like it here? He asked quietly. Alara thought for a moment. I like it, she admitted. It's calm and the people are kind. And, well, I like your company. Toby smiled. So, maybe you'll be my mama? Alara knelt down and looked into his hopeful eyes. I'm not sure yet, she said softly. But I do know I want to be here for you tonight. Toby nodded solemnly, then leaned into her side. That's good enough for now. As the night fell, Alara sat outside with Toby on her lap. The twin moons rose over the canyon, casting silver light over the settlement. The hover drones rested quietly on their tethers, and the distant mountains glowed faintly under the stars. Alara realized something important. She had been traveling for so long, avoiding connections and keeping her heart safe. But now, with Toby and Jax, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Belonging. Not a place to stay, but people to care for, and who cared for her in return. She held Toby a little closer and let herself imagine a future where she didn't have to leave, and a place where laughter and learning, trust and love could grow. Somewhere far above, a faint streak of light crossed the sky, a shooting star, or perhaps a distant spaceship. Alara smiled. Red Mesa was small, dusty, and quiet, but it felt like the beginning of something new. Something brighter than the loneliness she had carried for so long. And as Toby yawned and snuggled closer, she whispered softly, Maybe, just maybe, I'll stay. The night air was calm, the stars twinkled, and for the first time in a long while, Alara felt at peace. Tomorrow they would face new challenges, learn new things, and perhaps even explore a little of the universe together. But tonight there was only warmth, laughter, and the quiet promise of a family forming under the twin moons of Red Mesa. The twin suns were high over Red Mesa, casting long shadows across the dusty canyon. The small settlement hummed with activity as hover drones zipped between tethered solar collectors, and the faint clatter of tools filled the air. Alara stood in the courtyard adjusting the rotors of a small engine, while Toby played nearby, guiding a drone carefully along a set path she had drawn in the dust. Jax walked up, holding a small device that blinked and whirred in warning. Alara, Take a look at this, he said, handing her the scanner. On the small screen, a swirling mass of blue and purple lights appeared, a cosmic storm forming above the canyon's edge. Elara frowned. It's not nearby yet, but it's moving fast. I could hit by tomorrow morning if the winds change direction. Toby peeked at the screen, his small fingers resting on its edge. A storm? Like the ones on Earth? Elara shook her head gently. No, this is different. Cosmic storms are made of ionized particles and energy currents from space. They can interfere with electronics and solar grids. But don't worry, we'll be safe if we prepare. Jax nodded, already thinking about what they needed to do. We'll have to secure all the solar panels, check the drones, and make sure the power grids can handle fluctuations. You think you can help, Elara? Elara smiled. Of course. Let's get started. For the rest of the day, the trio worked together. Toby was surprisingly helpful, carrying small tools, holding wires steady, and even learning to recalibrate a minor sensor on one of the solar collectors. Elara guided him patiently, teaching him to focus and stay calm even when the wind picked up slightly. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, the first signs of the storm appeared. Small sparks flickered along the edges of the solar collectors, and the distant sky glowed with shimmering lights. The canyon seemed to hum with energy, as if the rocks themselves were aware of the approaching storm. Looks beautiful, doesn't it? Toby said, staring wide-eyed at the sky. Elara chuckled softly. Beautiful, yes, but dangerous too. We need to finish securing everything before it gets too strong. Jax adjusted a panel, glancing at the boy. Stay close to Elara, Toby. No wandering off. The wind will pick up. Toby nodded, gripping Alara's hand. I'm not afraid, he said bravely. I know, Elara replied, squeezing his hand gently. But it's smart to be careful anyway. They worked quickly, securing the tethered solar panels with reinforced cables, checking each rotor and tightening any loose connections. Toby's eyes sparkled with excitement as he helped guide a drone through a makeshift safety path Elara had drawn in the dust. Like flying through hoops, he said with glee. By evening, the storm was closer. Its colors shifted and danced above the canyon walls, painting the settlement in glowing streaks of purple, blue, and silver. The wind picked up, tossing dust into the air and making the hover drones shiver on their tethers. Elara stood back to survey their work. We're ready, she said. The panels are secure, the drones are tethered, and the power grid is stabilized. The storm can't hurt us if we stay careful. Jax nodded, but his eyes stayed on the sky. It's a big one. I've never seen a storm like this over Red Mesa before. Toby tugged on Alara's sleeve. Do you think it will be scary? Elara knelt to his level. It might be a little scary, she said gently, but we'll face it together. And after it passes, everything will be fine. Night fell, and the twin moons rose above the canyon, their silver light mixing with the storm's colorful glow. Elara and Toby set up a small observation station in the supply station's workshop. They watched the storm from behind reinforced glass panels, sipping warm tea. It's so bright, Toby whispered. Yes, Elara agreed. But look how safe we are inside. We can watch without worrying. Jax joined them, sitting beside Elara and Toby. The storm is like a test, he said. Not of strength, but of teamwork. If we stick together and stay calm, we can handle anything. Toby nodded solemnly. Teamwork, he repeated. I like working in a team. Elara smiled back, feeling warmth in her chest. Me too, Toby. Me too. As the night deepened, the storm grew stronger. Tiny sparks flickered along the edges of the settlement, and the wind rattled the solar panels. But inside, the three of them stayed calm, working together to monitor the energy grid and ensure that every panel and drone remained secure. At one point, a small rotor on a drone began to spin unevenly. Toby noticed immediately. Elara! Look, it's shaking. Elara grabbed the wrench, kneeling beside the drone. Good catch, Toby, she said. Hold it steady while I fix it. Toby held the drone's frame with careful hands as Elara adjusted the rotor. A few sparks flew, but Elara laughed softly. See? Nothing we can't handle. By midnight, the storm had reached its peak. Bright streaks of energy arced across the sky, casting strange shadows across the canyon walls. The wind roared gently, shaking the tethered drones. But despite the chaos outside, inside the supply station, there was warmth and calm. Elara looked at Toby, who was leaning against her side, eyes wide but unafraid. You're very brave, she said. I'm brave because you're here, he replied. Jack smiled quietly. He's right. We do better together. The storm began to pass slowly. By the early hours of morning, the swirling colors in the sky faded into deep blue and the wind softened to a gentle hum. The settlement was intact, solar panels and drones all secure, thanks to the careful teamwork of the trio. Alara stepped outside with Toby, letting him run a small drone through the calm night air. The twin moons reflected off the canyon walls, and the first hints of sunrise colored the horizon. "See?" Alara said, watching Toby guide the drone. "Storms can be beautiful too, if you face them with patience and care." Toby laughed. "I like storms now." Jax joined them outside, brushing dust from his sleeves. "You two did good," he said. "I'm proud of both of you." Alara felt a quiet pride as well, but also something more. The storm had been a test, not of machines, but of hearts. She realized that she wasn't just helping Toby and Jax because it was her job. She was staying because she wanted to. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "we'll fix the rest of the settlement. There's more to do, but we did well tonight." Toby nodded, already sleepy but smiling. "And we'll do it together, right?" "Together," Alara promised. The storm had passed, but something deeper had shifted. The little boy's question from long ago, "Will you be my mama?" lingered in her mind. She didn't have to answer yet, but she knew something important. She had found people she cared for, people she wanted to protect, and a place she could belong, even if only for now. As dawn approached, Alara watched the canyon fill with golden light. The twin moons faded, and Red Mesa looked brighter than ever, peaceful after the storm. Toby was already running ahead to check the drones, while Jax prepared the solar arrays for the new day. Alara took a deep breath. The storm had tested their skills, their patience, and their hearts. And through it all, they had grown closer, forming bonds that went beyond survival. She looked at Toby and Jax, feeling a quiet certainty. No cosmic storm, no matter how strong, could shake the connection forming between them. And for the first time in a long time, she imagined a future where she didn't have to leave. A future full of laughter, learning, and love. Red Mesa was small, dusty, and isolated, but it was theirs. And together, they could face anything the stars sent their way. The morning after the cosmic storm was calm. The twin suns rose over the canyon, casting a golden glow across the Red Mesa settlement. Dust floated gently in the sunlight, and the hover drones hummed softly as they checked the solar collectors. The storm had passed, leaving the air crisp and clean, and even the canyon rocks seemed brighter, glistening in the light. Alara stepped outside the supply station and breathed deeply. The smell of warm dust and freshly repaired machines filled her senses. She looked around at the settlement, small, quiet, but alive. And then she saw Toby, already running ahead, guiding a small drone along the careful path she had drawn the day before. His laughter rang through the canyon, light and full of joy. "Good morning, Toby," she called softly. "Good morning, Alara," he shouted back, waving his small hand. "Come see." I made a new course for the drone. Alara smiled and followed him, adjusting her hat against the sun. Jax was outside too, checking the solar panels, making sure nothing had been damaged in the storm. He glanced at her as she approached, giving her a quiet nod of acknowledgement. The day promised work, yes, but it also promised connection. After the storm, everything needed to be checked and repaired, and Alara was ready. She had spent days with Toby and Jax, learning about the settlement's machinery, guiding Toby through repairs, and enjoying small moments of laughter and discovery. But now, there was something else tugging at her heart, a choice she had been avoiding for weeks. As Toby guided the drone through his new course, he looked back at her with a grin. "Do you think we can finish all the repairs today?" Alara crouched to his level, smoothing the sand from his hair. "We can try, but it's not just about finishing. It's about learning, helping, and working together." Toby nodded solemnly. "I like working together." The morning passed quickly. They moved from solar panels to hover drones to old engines, checking everything that might have been affected by the storm. Alara guided Toby carefully, teaching him how to adjust wires, check rotors, and balance energy flows. Each small success brought a bright smile to his face and a quiet pride to hers. By midday, the settlement was humming smoothly. The storm had left only minor adjustments to make, and the work had strengthened the bond between the three of them. Toby, full of energy, ran around delivering small tools while Alara and Jax worked side by side. During a brief pause, Alara wiped sweat from her brow and looked at Jax. "You've done a good job raising him," she said softly. Jax shrugged, brushing dust from his sleeves. "He's a good kid." Smart, brave, curious, a lot like you, I think. Elara felt a warmth in her chest. She hadn't expected to hear such a compliment. I just hope I've helped him a little, too. You have, Jack said simply. More than you know. The afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the canyon walls in shades of orange and pink. Toby was sitting nearby, tinkering with a small drone, when he suddenly looked up at her with a serious expression. Elara, he began, his voice quiet but firm. I know I asked you before, but will you be my mama? Elara's heart tightened. She had spent days avoiding this question, not because she didn't care, but because she was afraid. Afraid of leaving, afraid of staying, afraid of being responsible for someone she had only just met. But now, watching Toby's earnest eyes and thinking of the connection she had formed with him and Jax, she knew. She knelt down and held his small hands gently. Toby, I will be your mama, she whispered. Toby's face lit up with pure joy. Really? He shouted, hugging her tightly. Yes, really? She said, laughing softly, feeling tears prick her eyes. But remember, we'll all learn together. Being a family takes teamwork, just like fixing drones and solar panels. Jax watched quietly from nearby, a small smile spreading across his face. He had hoped for this moment for a long time, and now it was here. He stepped forward, putting a hand on Elara's shoulder. Welcome to the family, he said warmly. That evening the settlement celebrated quietly. They didn't have much, but the warmth of friendship and family filled the supply station. Toby showed Elara the new drone course he had designed, and she guided him through it, laughing when he tried creative shortcuts that didn't quite work. Jax joined in, watching the two of them play with a soft, proud smile. After dinner, the three of them stepped outside to watch the twin moons rise over the canyon. The air was cool and calm, a gentle breeze stirring the red dust. The stars above shimmered, far brighter after the storm, and a faint streak of light crossed the sky. A small comet, or perhaps a distant spaceship. Elara held Toby's hand, feeling the weight and joy of responsibility, but also the warmth of belonging. We're really a family now, she said softly. Toby squeezed her hand. Yes, a family. Jax leaned against a support beam, watching them. You know, he said quietly, I think Red Mesa just got a little brighter today. Elara smiled. She looked at the settlement, the canyon, and the stars above. This place, which had once felt lonely and small, now felt like home. The people, the machines, the dust, and even the wind. It was all part of a family she had chosen to be with. The night passed peacefully. Toby fell asleep in her lap, the little boy finally calm and safe, dreaming of drones, stars, and adventures yet to come. Jax repaired a small drone nearby, humming quietly, content, and Elara, for the first time in years, let herself relax completely. She didn't have to leave, didn't have to wander alone. Here, with Toby and Jax, she had found a home and a purpose. The next morning, the settlement was alive with energy once again. Elara and Toby worked on the hover drones, preparing them for a calm flight test. Jax checked the solar panels, nodding in satisfaction as everything ran smoothly. The cosmic storm was far behind them, a memory of challenge and teamwork that had strengthened the bonds between them. Toby looked up at Elara, bright-eyed and hopeful. Mama, he said softly, can we fly the drones to the canyon edge today? Elara laughed gently. Of course, Toby, but we'll go together, and carefully. The three of them walked to the canyon edge, the hover drones ready to take flight. The red dust glowed in the morning sun, the canyon stretching wide and inviting before them. Elara felt a thrill in her chest, not from the flight itself, but from the thought that she belonged here, with this small family she had chosen. They launched the drones together, guiding them through loops and gentle spins, teaching Toby how to anticipate the wind and balance the craft. He laughed with joy, and Elara laughed with him. Jax watched, proud and happy, knowing that this new life was full of possibility. As the day went on, the settlement buzzed with small victories, laughter, and quiet moments of care. Elara helped Toby understand how to repair the drones. Jax taught her small tricks about the solar grids, and together they discovered the beauty of everyday life on Red Mesa. In the evening, they gathered once again under the twin moons. Toby fell asleep in Elara's arms, smiling softly in his dreams. Jax leaned close, resting his hand on hers. I think this is just the beginning, he said. Elara nodded, feeling a warmth she had never known before. Yes, she said softly, this is just the beginning. The stars above shone brighter than ever, reflecting the new bonds that had formed, the laughter, the care, and the promise of adventure. Red Mesa was small, dusty, and quiet, But to Alora, Toby, and Jax, it was perfect. A place to stay, a place to grow, and a place to love. Together they faced the stars, the canyon, and each new day ahead not as strangers or travelers, but as a family. And in that small, quiet corner of the universe, Ilara finally felt at home.